natural-born public speaker, and that's a fact.
Do you actually feel guilty or were you just told to feel guilty?
Focus on actually what we can do.
Point it out and show it to me.
You have the freedom to do what you want to and be what you want to in America.
What are we going to do about it?
What oppressed me?
Just saying.
So the CRT stuff, BS.
If you haven't already, go subscribe to our new channel, Larry Elder Daily. That's right, every day we'll have a new video, so you definitely don't want to miss out. Click the link in the description below and subscribe to Larry Elder Daily. We'll see you there. Well, an FDA panel voted 17-0 with one abstention to recommend a Pfizer vaccine for kids aged 5 to 11.
And one more thing, vaccinating our children will help us keep our schools open, keep our kids in the classroom, learning, socializing with their classmates and teachers. I think every reporter in this room who has a child understands the difference of a child going to school and having to learn from home. It matters. It matters in terms of their not just physical health and mental health. You know, during this pandemic, we've seen just how important being in school is for families and for our country.
And there are now 92 studies that suggest the superiority of natural immunity over vaccines. Epoch Times' own Jan Jekielek interviewed two doctors, one from Harvard, one from Stanford.
I don't think children should be vaccinated for COVID. I'm a huge fan of vaccinating children for measles, for mumps, for polio, from rotavirus, and many other diseases. It's absolutely critical. But COVID is not a huge threat to children. They can be infected, just that they can get the common cold. But they're not a big threat. They don't die from this, except in very rare circumstances. So if you want to talk about protecting children or keeping children safe, I think we can talk about traffic accidents, for example. Where there are some risks, and there are other things that we should make sure to keep children safe. But COVID is not a big risk factor for children.
In Jan's interview, the issue of whether people should be fired if they haven't been vaccinated came up.
The thing I would say is when people quit or get fired because they won't take the vaccine, I would think of that, there is some real good news there. I mean, it is your legal right to not take the vaccine. We live in a country that prioritizes individual freedom. But if you refuse to take the vaccine, you're putting a lot of people's parents and grandparents, including some who are vaccinated, people who are immunocompromised, you are putting those people at risk of serious illness or even death. And so if the punishment that you need to take for potentially harming others is you can't have the job you have, I don't have a problem with that. You're choosing to put others at risk, people who can't protect themselves, and that means I don't have a lot of sympathy for what you have to forfeit.
Hospitals should hire nurses and other staff with natural immunity, and then they should assign those to the geriatric wards where there are older people who are extra sensitive, who are frail, and even if they're vaccinated, they might be at risk of dying from COVID. So we should utilize them to take care of older patients who are at risk. The same with nursing homes. Nursing homes should go out and try to hire people who have natural immunity. They're the ones who are least likely to infect the residents. And we're doing the opposite. They're being fired.
We're ready to be done with this, but we're not done until the world is safe, and we're not safe as a world until the world's vaccinated.
Except the world recognizes natural immunity. We don't, because everything in this country has to go through the pharmaceutical companies. Natural immunity is the best kind of immunity. We shouldn't fire people who have natural immunity because they don't get the vaccine. We should hire them. Right. Yes?
If someone tests as having antibodies.
Well, okay, but you know, people who've had it, I've had it.
Right.
You know, I mean, I shouldn't be tested anymore. I had the vaccine.
I got the. If someone's willing to be a fireman, if someone's willing to be a policeman, if someone's willing to go into a burning building and says, I'm just not that afraid of COVID and I don't want to take the vaccine, that should be enough. He shouldn't be losing his job. He shouldn't be furloughed without pay. The guy that saves lives because he doesn't want to take a vaccine. It's ridiculous.
Pretty phenomenal news. It was recently announced that Social Security benefits are going to increase by 5.9% in January. That's the highest increase in 40 years. This is the government admitting that inflation is out of control, and yet the left is still pushing through trillions more in spending. So, how are you going to protect your savings from inflation? Diversify your savings into physical gold and silver with Birch Gold Group. Birch Gold Group is a company that I trust with precious metals. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews, and thousands of satisfied customers. And they can help you protect your hard-earned savings.
Oh, good. That's neat.
And now, an incentive for you to do so this month. When you text Larry to 474747 and purchase precious metals with Birch Gold Group by December 23rd, you'll get free silver for every $5,000 you invest. And yes, you can convert an IRA or eligible 401k into a gold IRA. That qualifies too. To get a no-cost, no-obligation info kit and to qualify for your free silver on every purchase by December 23, text Larry to the number 474747. This comprehensive 20-page kit reveals how gold and silver can protect your savings and how you can hold gold and silver in a tax-sheltered account. So do it right now. Text the word Larry to 474747. That's Larry to 474747.
I mean, one example is from Sweden during the first wave in the spring of 2020, which affected Sweden quite strongly. But Sweden decided to keep daycare and schools open for all kids ages 1 to 15. And there are 1.8 million such children who lived through the first wave without vaccines, of course, without masks, without any social distancing in schools. If a child was sick, they were told to stay home, but that was basically it. And do you know how many of those 1.8 billion children died from COVID?
I think I remember the number because it's 0, right?
Yeah, 0.
Okay. Yeah.
Only a few hospitalizations. So this is not a risky disease for children.
So who should be vaccinated?
If you are 78 years old, then it's a no-brainer in my view, because the benefits are so great that even if you have a small risk for some adverse reaction, the benefit far outweighs the risk. On the other hand, if you already have immunity from having had COVID, then the benefits of the vaccines is much, much smaller. Even if you haven't had COVID, if you're a child, the risk of serious disease or death is minuscule. It's less than from the annual influenza, which is already very low for children. So there's also, it's not at all clear that the benefits outweigh the risks for children.
Now, this Stanford medical professor says the CDC has lost all credibility and suggested ways they could get it back.
I mean, I think we have a fantastic tool to protect the vulnerable, the vaccines. We should work very hard to convince vulnerable people that it's worthwhile for them to get it. And that involves, for instance, not doing a mandate. A mandate, essentially, what it's done is created a class of people. Like the vaccine, the anti-vax movement used to be a small fringe movement on the edge of society. And scientists would obsess over it, or that how can there exist X percent of less than some 1% of people that don't agree that an MMR vaccine is a good idea. What the vaccine mandates have done, what this entire policy environment has done, including like the denial of natural immunity, for instance, immunity that's provided by recovery after COVID, is it's created deep distrust over this vaccine.
My message to unvaccinated Americans is this: what more is there to wait for? What more do you need to see? We've made vaccinations free, safe, and convenient. The vaccine has FDA approval. Over 200 million Americans have gotten at least one shot. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin, and your refusal has cost all of us. So please do the right thing.
And now that this anti-vax movement, if you will, is 20% of the population, 30%. I mean, it's some much larger fraction. It's mainstreamed it. It's because people have lost trust in the science. Scientists have made all kinds of promises about the lockdowns, about the vaccines that have not come to pass. right? So, for instance, the promise was that the vaccines will get us to a place where we can more or less not worry about the spread of the disease. Well, of course, that turned out not to be true. Like, the vaccine does not stop the disease from spreading. Highly vaccinated population and still have the disease spread. That's clear now, right? The promise was that the lockdowns would protect the vulnerable. Well, that's turned out to be false. And then the idea was like, the reason for the vaccine mandate is there's not enough people cooperating with us to get vaccinated together. If we have sufficiently large fraction of the population vaccinated, we would stop the thing. So now that we've created this essentially an outclass of people, these unvaccinated people, we can blame for all kinds of things. Remove them from normal life. A lot of them are poor. A lot of them are minorities. A lot of them are working class people who worked through the epidemic. They were the heroes of the epidemic up until the moment they decided, I've already got COVID. I don't know if the vaccine is for me. You can argue about whether it is right or wrong from a medical point of view for them. But instead of respecting them, they said, look, you must get it or you lose your job. That's essentially where we are. So I think we've created this like deep distrust in science and in medicine through these like coercive policies and these set of failed promises. And I think what needs to happen is we need to work to heal that. I mean, public health is actually quite an important thing. And having a public health that people can trust is actually important for people's health. And I think we have to reverse course. I mean, frankly, if I were in charge of the CDC, I would just apologize for the enormous mistakes that public health has made over the last 18 months, and seek to start anew, seek to get trust of the public. I think that has to be the beginning of it, like some acknowledgement that things have gone deeply wrong, rather than trying to scapegoat, to take responsibility that the orthodoxy that promoted these lockdowns, that oversold the vaccines instead of using them for focused protection, promising essentially zero COVID with them. They should acknowledge them, acknowledge that immunity after infection actually exists, acknowledge their errors, and then try to start over.
So, Jan asks, who got it right? Florida or California?
We direct a statewide order for people to stay at home. That directive goes into force and effect this evening, and we are confident that the people of the state of California will abide by it.
Lockdowns don't work. If you look at places like Illinois, New York, California, they have the COVID, some of it's way worse than Florida per capita.
Take the nations and states. I'll just give you a very, very simple example, right? So Florida has essentially opened up entirely in September of 2020, mostly opened up in May of 2020, have not followed a lockdown policy, didn't close businesses, didn't close schools. Many places in Florida didn't mandate masks. So in schools in Florida actually didn't require, like half the schools in Florida, more than half the schools in Florida didn't require masks during the year. Or allowed parents to opt out or whatever, right? So what you had is essentially like an A/B test. You have Florida, which followed a much more, at the same time, they also followed a focused protection plan, protecting nursing homes before the vaccine, moving resources into nursing homes to test staff, reducing staff rotations, working to provide resources so that the older people that live in Florida could avoid being infected during high seasons of COVID. On the other hand, you have New York and New Jersey, Pennsylvania, California that followed lockdown policies. Well, which had better COVID outcomes? Well, it turns out Florida did. Florida had lower risk-adjusted death rates from COVID than California did, even now, even after the recent summer surge in Florida in cases and deaths. Which is shocking, right? But it's true. You've also had more equal outcomes. So for instance, in California, it's the Hispanic population that has borne the brunt of COVID. A disproportionate number of deaths in COVID in California have come in the Hispanic population. In New York, it's the Black population that had a disproportionate number of deaths from COVID, the working class people in each of these states. In Florida, there is no discordance between the deaths from COVID by race and the population representation. COVID was an equal opportunity killer in Florida. There was less age-adjusted death rates in Florida, whereas in the lockdown states, you had this incredibly unequal outcome by race and income, and also worse outcome in terms of deaths.
Jan asked about herd immunity. Exactly what is it?
If you let infections rip, as it were, and say, let everybody get infected that's going to be able to be getting infected, and then we'll have herd immunity, quite frankly, that is nonsense. And anybody who knows anything about epidemiology will tell you that that is nonsense and very dangerous.
But COVID, if you're infected with it and recover from it, it produces immunity that's is actually quite durable. So the estimates are at 1 year, something like 0.3% of people are reinfected after they've recovered from COVID. Okay, so herd immunity is a very simple idea. It's that at time t right now, every person that gets COVID infects one or fewer additional people. So if I get COVID, I only infect one person or fewer than one person on average. And what that means is that the disease will decrease in prevalence, the decrease in incidence. So that whenever the case counts are coming down, you're actually in herd immunity. Herd immunity is not a synonym for zero COVID. I think that is the problem many people have had in thinking about herd immunity. It's not a synonym for the disease has gone away, we never have to think about it again. A society can go in and out of herd immunity. During high COVID season, the winter, and you actually, a smaller fraction of the population, you start getting cases that are going up because the herd immunity threshold actually goes up. You need a larger fraction of the population actually immune in order for the cases to start coming down again. And vice versa, during low COVID season, even a small fraction of the population immune means that the disease won't spread very much because you're above the herd immunity threshold very quickly. So what you have is a situation where when the disease first entered the population, no one was immune. And it spread very, very rapidly because every person that got it spread it to 2-3 other people, right? You can have variants that are more transmissible. Supposedly Delta is more transmissible, which make it so that even when you have a certain fraction of the population immune, you get a new variant. Well, because it's more transmissible, you need a larger fraction immune for the disease not to grow. But what's happened over time is a larger and larger fraction of the population of different countries have become immune by dint of natural infection and recovery. And so it will become more and more difficult for the disease to spread very rapidly and widely, to be an epidemic the same way it was in 2020. Actually, there's another sort of irony in this. The World Health Organization, when we wrote the Great Barrington Declaration, it changed the definition of herd immunity on their website. They said that it's immunity in a population, if I'm trying to get exact, but essentially it's an immunity in the population created by vaccines. They erased the natural immunity part of the definition. After protest, they put it back. They said both vaccines and natural immunity can contribute to herd immunity. Ironically, the vaccines seem to protect against transmission for only a short time, and certainly incompletely. So that means the natural immunity is going to be the more important contributor to herd immunity when it happens. Now, let me just tell you what it'll look like. It won't look like the disease is gone. During high COVID season, the disease will return. During low COVID seasons, it'll go back down again. Disease will continue to spread in the population over and over. People are likely to get COVID more than once in their lifetime, just like they're likely to get other colds more than once in their lifetime. The good news is that the second, third, fourth times you get it, your body remembers how to deal with it, and it's likely to be much milder than the first time you got it. So learning to live with COVID is not as scary as you might think. It's better the first time you get it to be protected with the vaccine, because the vaccine blunts the worst of the disease, this death and hospitalization. But I don't envision a future where you have to get boosters over and over and over again, because such a large fraction of the population has already had it and therefore has pretty effective protection against severe disease if they get reinfected.
2 extraordinary interviews from the host of America's Thought Leaders. Jan, well done. I'm Larry Elder, and we've got a country to save. I will see you next time. Out. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy my show, go check out epictv.com for more fantastic shows. You definitely don't want to miss this. Sign up for free today. We'll see you there.
What is going on, folks? Appreciate you guys watching. Do me a favor, if you're trying to get to the next reaction video that I did after this video, it's right here. But if you're trying to get to my own personal stuff where I do a lot of comedy things that make you laugh, can help brighten your day, then you click right here, all right? And if you want to subscribe to this channel, you forgot to get to know who I am first, all right? Then you're going to click right here to lead you into this subscription. Make sure you hit the bell notifications to get notified anytime I post a video, all right?